Welcome to the Coach's Corner. John Stango here with Joe Pienta, Director of Iona College's cross country and track and field program. Coach, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing pretty well. Enjoying a little bit of quarantine at times, but trying to get stuff done up here. It's been a weird month or so, month and a half. But 6 weeks ago, it didn't seem like a whole lot was going on, and then all of a sudden everything's different. So we're all just dealing with it.
Where in the wild world of Joe Pienta are you right now? Where are you taking in this quarantine?
I'm in Pavilion, New York, which is probably the middle of nowhere in Western New York. I'm up here. Hopefully this internet connection gets us through the interview, but if not, if there's some technical difficulties, I'll let you figure them out.
You got steady connection now, so you're all right. I was wondering if you could just kind of take me through a day of what you're doing right now, working from Pavilion, New York, communicating with your team, doing what you can remotely. Just kind of take us what you go through on a day-to-day basis.
Well, it's a little bit of an easier commute than driving up from Brooklyn to New Rochelle. I just walk down the stairs, fill up a cup of coffee, check email, follow up with what's going on. There's enough administrative stuff that is keeping me occupied. Kids will check in, now and again where, we're not allowed to kind of conduct virtual practice or really have them report any training back. A lot of the kids ask for recommended training plans. We send that stuff out, and they're training as best as they can. So, I've enjoyed a little bit of downtime kind of away from them. I'm sure they've enjoyed a little bit of time away from me, but I think by now we probably all miss just the normalcy of, seeing each other at practice and just going out there and running, and I think that's why all the kids enjoy the team, enjoy being at Iona is for the camaraderie, and, it's tough to get that without having practice. So I think it's probably more tough for them. I don't mind a little bit of the downtime after the last 10 years or so, but I'm eager to get back as well.
Yes. I mean, one of the mantras of your program is kind of self-motivation. You rely on your student athletes to train on their own quite a bit and go for those long runs. Do you think that's easier or harder now with the more free time they have, but they're also isolated where they're only by themselves? Do you think it's easier or harder for them to get that self-motivation to go out and run?
I think it varies for each individual. I do think times like this really, you really show your true colors with how motivated you are, how much you want it. When things are a little bit tougher, it's a lot easier to get out the door when you've got all your friends to run with. And I think they're all just kind of dealing with it as they can. I think the tough part is when you're off your routine, if you're, a little bit hurt, you can't get into athletic training room and sports medicine and all the stuff that they do for us. So that's been, I think, tough for them. But I think that's why a lot of our guys and girls are good, is because they know what it takes to be good. And it's an intrinsic motivation. It's not, it's not the show of it. It's just getting down and buckling down and holding yourself to a higher standard to get some work done. And I think they have that. I know some of them are pretty busy with school. I think that's a little bit of a different thing, the online learning thing. I think some professors have been pretty good with things. I think some professors are piling stuff on, whether they would have or not, without the online thing. Who's to say? Some classes are always going to be harder than others, but I think they're all just making do with that stuff. But we don't know where things are going. We lost the spring season. We're hopeful that we don't lose the fall season and beyond. But the one nice thing is everybody has the ability to just go out there and run and train and get better. You don't need all the fancy stuff. You don't need the facilities. You don't need anything but your own 2 feet and a little bit of mental fortitude.
You mentioned the academics, which has been a priority for the Iona Athletics Department during this time. Can you just talk about how the academic staff, Rory and Sarah in particular, have really kind of maybe helped you understand how to communicate to your student athletes, or have helped your student athletes themselves get through this tough time? Because The day of recording here, we're only a couple weeks away from graduation, which is really crazy to think about.
Yeah, I just sent out an email to the kids. We I haven't really met. We haven't done any Zoom meetings or anything like that. I think they've got enough on their plate with classes. We have a lot of kids all over the different time zones and things like that. But Rory and Sarah in academics have helped a lot. It's been good to kind of fill those roles after a little while. Just in terms of keeping track of time, when deadlines are coming up. I think they've been really good at meeting with some of our kids through Zoom or Skype or whatever, or phone calls, for the kids who need a little bit of extra help. Having that, there's a lot of stuff you take for granted, and now we're thrown outside of that normalcy. And I think it took some kids a few weeks to get themselves sorted. So they've helped quite a bit. And that's one of the benefits of I think being a college athlete is getting a little bit of having a little bit of a safety net out there. But we'll see how things go. I mean, we're hoping everybody graduates on time, does well in all their classes, and we should have another good GPA. I'm hoping, although yeah, we'll see how things go.
You mentioned the disappointment of having the spring season canceled. Obviously, a necessary thing, but tough for everyone to hear, especially for maybe your program, because I think it's fair to say, you can answer this better than me, but you guys exceeded expectations at the indoor track and field championships, winning track most outstanding player both on the men's and women's side. So I haven't talked to you since you won the indoor track and field championship. So, or not won, but placed very, very well, third and fourth respectively. So can you kind of talk about that championship and how disappointing it was you couldn't continue that momentum heading into the spring?
Yeah, well, we really had a great indoor season from a lot of people, and it was one of those things that we had. Jack O'Leary was ranked 18th in the 5,000. He was 2 spots away from making NCAAs, and NCAAs ended up not happening. So but still one of those things. You want to qualify for it, you want to be there. But he ran the third fastest time in Iona history, behind Leonard Career and Richard Kiplagat, 13:44. It was just a great effort, and he's come such a long way in the last year and gotten really consistent. Eglay, I'd have to double check. She was probably like 20th or so on the list, or she was a few spots out of making the 5K. The 5K went back a little bit further. I know she was bummed out she didn't make it, but we're hopeful for both of them could make it outdoors. Gemma Nuttall was a few spots away, running maybe the 4th fastest time in Iona history in the mile at 4:39. She just really came on strong at the end of the year. Surprised herself. We've been telling her she could do that for a while, but she won't believe it until she actually does it and sees it with her own eyes. So we had some really good individual performances. Jack Hopkins anchored the DMR in a win and won the 3,000, and he's just been a really incredible comeback story from some injury stuff. And that was tough for him. He's worked so hard to come back, and he's finally healthy, hitting his stride. And we get to outdoors. Well, there's no outdoor season. So fingers crossed that going forward we can, we're aiming to have 2 really, really good cross country teams back. So I'm just trying to be as optimistic as I can that the fall happens. If it doesn't, we'll take it in stride. But we have the potential to have some all-time teams come the fall. But it was a bummer to miss the outdoor season. I think we were gonna turn some heads. We'd have a lot of kids coming off a great indoor season, off some great training, a few guys and girls who redshirted. So it's just one of those things. You just kind of you take what comes. There's a lot out of our control right now, so it's just about managing those things.
Yeah, you just got to kind of roll with the punches a little bit. In terms of rolling with the punches, I mean, everyone has a little bit more free time now just because they can't necessarily go everywhere that they want to or that they normally would. So just speaking on you personally, what have you done to kind of fill your free time, whether it be reading a good book, whether it be playing a card game or watching TV or movies? You do anything to preoccupy your time now that you maybe didn't have time for in the past?
Well, I thought about spending some time shaving, but as you can see, I haven't. I'm
I
growing out the
respect
beard a
it.
little bit, but that's not really something that occupies much time. I had a lot of thoughts, and I still do, of trying to read a little bit more, um, but I haven't. Um, there's between getting some stuff done. When quarantine first hit, I think I was as big a fan as any of the Tiger King documentary. That was just a wild story. I've been um, hooked on the Michael Jordan documentary that came out, The Last Dance. Although I've got to watch one of the episodes from last night. I didn't catch it. Um, I've been biking a lot more, so it is nice to have a little bit of free time away. We don't have practice, hours of practice a day, and um, not being at the office. So I've been trying to occupy my time somewhat productively. In fairness, I've been reading a good amount about, just different, old training books and old running stories, stuff like that. But haven't dabbled into any of the old tomes of literary expertise or anything like that.
Do you have a lesson or something you picked up from one of those old training books or old little stories, the older stories that you're going to bring into your training now? Anything, any little secret?
Yeah, there's no secrets. You just got to run a lot, and for everybody, that's a little different. There's the nuances. You got to run a fair amount. You got to be consistent with it. And I think when you start looking for secrets or magic training, I think some kids buy into that. There's the power of magical thinking, but um, the reality is you just have to get out there and be consistent and be dedicated to it, and you're going to get better. It's one of the we don't there's no playing time. Nobody's asking for minutes, anything like that. You just get on your 2 feet, and the results are there. So you get out of it what you put into it. So, but it is nice to see what people have done in the past. I mean, with looking back at some of the old Iona workouts and what guys like Richard Kiplagat were doing. Things like that is just cool to see. Sometimes we have kids doing the same workouts that they were doing back then. So it's just kind of neat to see some of that.
Well, if it's a winning formula, you don't necessarily need to change it all that much. So before I let you go, just want to ask you this. What's the one big thing that you kind of miss most about being around your team and also just on campus in your office, talking with the other members of the coaching staff? I've talked to people and they've missed the smell of the microwave with someone heating up their lunch and random things like that. But is there anything that really
I
kind
don't
of sticks
miss
out
I
to
don't miss anything like that, John.
you? Well, is there anything that really sticks out to you about what you miss most? Kind of maybe something that you didn't take for, that you maybe took for granted earlier on, but now you think about going, oh, this was a nice thing that we used to do all the time.
Well, I like to gripe about all my athletes and pretend that I enjoy not seeing them. But it the nice thing about coaching and working with a group is you do get you get a cast of characters, and just you miss the overall goofiness of dealing with college kids, and my sense of humor and things like that. I think that's the thing. Just joking around, and you know, they bust on me, I'll bust on them. Some more than others. Hopefully, I don't pick on anybody too much. Probably some, but so yeah, it's just weird. Not have this is my 10th year at Iona, and it's just been grinding all the time. Every being in work every day, not having too many days off, and so now to have a little, to take a step back, you learn to appreciate some of the things that maybe I wasn't, maybe like you said, taken for granted. Um, but yeah, I don't have a better answer than that. You know, I'm sure a couple coaches will be upset that I left out some more of the levity of this interview. It's more of a straightforward interview than some of my past ones, but
Listen, sometimes the necessary time calls for that. So, Coach, I want to thank you for taking the time from Pavilion, New York. I'll let you get back to the wilderness and get back to your biking, and stay safe out there.
all right, John, take her easy.